All right. So basically, I always like teaching people how to search for their schools. Because I mean, there are like if we should count all colleges and universities in the US, there are over 8,000 universities in the US plus colleges, right? It wouldn't mean that you would have to search all of these 8,000 universities. But the unfortunate thing is we always are surrounded or we are always applying to some selected few that we usually hear of. And how we get to hear of schools is through hearsay, through a friend's suggestion. And mostly the schools we suggest are schools we also heard from friends like us, I mean, who also were told once at a time what schools we have to apply. So it becomes kind of a repetitive of we applying to the same schools and trying to maybe create some sort of competition among ourselves. So we kind of get a double competition doing stuff like this because first of all, we are competing among ourselves. We are also competing with the international market. Meanwhile, there are over 8,000 universities in US we could have applied to. So basically, we all could have applied to different universities if you want. So why not maybe learn how to probably apply to a school probably someone never thought of, but still the school is one of the reputable institutions one may get into. So you could maybe search the state first of all, list of states in US, list of states in US, for example, just to give you an idea of the states in US. So this is a few of the states listed, and you could click on maybe this to give you all of them. No. So it shouldn't have come this way. Let me see. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so we have all the states here. You can get some metric about the state. The states try to know a few things about the state. If you think you would want something particular about the state before you apply to the state, you could just get that here. Some states are really populated. Some states could be as populated as the population of Ghana, and some could be as low as less than 1 billion and all that. So if you want a very calm state, I mean, if you want the popular ones to, as you go through the list here, you can get to know the names and get to know that I've heard this before, I haven't heard this before, and I want to try this. So you just go through the state to have a feel of what the state is. And later you can go ahead and search. So maybe we are selecting, I don't know the state to select, but let's say we are selecting states in, we are selecting the state Illinois, right? The state Illinois. So, and Illinois has two major cities, the capital and the largest city, Springfield and Chicago. It has 12 million population and a whole lot of other metrics. So maybe we would want to search Illinois. So I go to list of universities. Am I spelling? In Illinois. Oh, this way gives you a list of all the universities and colleges in Illinois, both public and private, and some land grant ones also. So usually you may get the name of the popular ones coming at the top of the list, but still the list isn't ranked. So it's not like University of Illinois Chicago is the highly ranked university in Illinois, or Loyola is maybe the second ranked university. No, sometimes just by hearsay, you get to know that, okay, this school people usually mention this school, UIC. So, okay, maybe it's kind of topping the list by some particular metric we don't really know. So this will give you the list and it will go on and go on. You can see 100 plus more colleges. So you can, shouldn't have this. Okay, let me click here to give me more information. So I go to 100 plus more colleges. Now it gives me more information than we had initially. So University of Illinois Chicago is giving us the average cost after age, which is usually what we shouldn't mind. You can sometimes concentrate on the graduation rate and the acceptance rate, but most importantly, the acceptance rate, even though sometimes it wouldn't really be a direct impression of how their admission rate goes. So the acceptance rate is basically talking of how many people they admit out of every 100 students. And usually this acceptance rate is related to the undergraduate students more than the graduate students. So it is more skewed towards the undergraduate student than the graduate student, because undergraduate student makes like 80% of the student population. And most of these metrics really suit them than the graduate student. But you can still use it as maybe more like a quantity to tell if you have a chance of getting into this university. I got into this university with an average credential, so you can tell that the 70% isn't that scary. So once you have some first class, some second class upper, possible some second class lower, and you can meet all their requirements, you are good to get into this. I submitted GRE for this, but it wouldn't mean all their programs would need GRE, for example. Yeah, so you can take note of all the acceptance rate, 71%, 73%, meaning they are almost likely to get into, but this one is a private university. And to get into a private or a public university also depends on you. Though I personally usually was used to applying to the public university because they are usually funded by the state, and somehow the state more like has enough money to maybe support graduate students when it comes to this assistantship stuff, unlike the private university, some private universities, because some private universities actually have a lot of money to support too. But the more they have the money, the more competitive those schools are. I mean, Harvard and MIT and the likes. And that's another funny thing about US. Most of the big universities are actually private universities. And of course, those universities also give scholarships because they are really, really competitive. So it becomes a matter of choice whether you want to apply to such schools or not. DePaul University is a private university, but also a very good university. You can also check the state university. So every state has a university. So what you see here, like Illinois State University, will be the same for all the other 50 states. So any state that comes to mind, there should be a school with the name of that state university. So there should be a school called maybe Washington State University, Iowa State University, Arizona State University, Ohio State University, New York State University, like any state that comes to mind. Just know that there is a there is a school related to that state, which is also going to be, they're usually the ones called the land. So you can also target state universities so that you get to know that, okay, if I'm applying to 5 schools, it means I've applied to schools from 5 different states. And sometimes it's fun. I mean, knowing that you apply to different states. And sometimes too, if you know the state you want to go to, you can target one state and apply to so many schools in that state. But it's somehow not advisable to, because there is always a way of me tracking my universities where I try to consider very competitive schools. I consider moderate ones or the medium ones, and I also consider very safe schools. So more like you have options from just very safe schools that are not really highly ranked to very competitive school. So if you are unlucky and you just get safe schools, at least you have a school to go to. But sometimes you could be lucky and the school you never thought you would get admission in would actually give you admission. And that means you made a very good bet and it actually worked. So sometimes people try to balance their schools by checking the ranking of the school and all that. But how do we get to check the ranking of the school? Remember, we just learned how to search for the schools based on the state. If you want to know how popular this school is or how highly ranked this school is, you can go to another website. This shit is worrying. Yeah, so you can go to another website. We call this website US News. You just type US News. You can add, I mean, we have some options already, best universities, best public universities. So maybe US News, uh, maybe college ranking, university, let me put it that way. University, I've been searching it, so you can see the last ones I have those links already, but if I don't start it afresh, you may not know how to get there. So US News University ranking would also have most of the schools, not all the schools, but 1,000 plus of the schools in Europe will be there. So I am clicking on the first list. Okay. And we are there. So this is how it would appear if you use your, let me no minus. Okay, so best university ranking, and so far it is showing us 443 results, right? And this 443 results is based on the metric we have selected so far. That is the filter we have selected national universities. So that's one thing you can use to maybe reduce the universities you would want to select from. By national universities, US is such that the universities are ranked in so many different categories. We have some ranked in the national universities, which is where usually the major universities in US are found. So by national university means they are nationally ranked, they are nationally maybe sorted after more or less, they are the same ones that are usually internationally sorted after too. So we have about 400, and so out of the 8,000 universities I told you about 443 are national. Yeah, basically the get to see people trying to get into from all parts of the world. So I think there is a new ranking now. Seeing Princeton University topping the list now. It wasn't, I think, some months ago. MIT topping the list. So this list will actually take you through a rank of 1 to 443 schools, and we'll be taking you through those ranks. So for each university, you can click on it, try to search something about the university. Maybe you don't want, you see, we could go through the list, and the first 50, we may get about half of the university in private university. So you may feel like, maybe the schools I'm seeing isn't really what I want, but I'm never also finishing. You can always alter the filter anyhow you want. So I'm at the rankings already. National University is selected, but I can add more options. I can select top public schools because I just want to go to public school. So once I select top public school, look at this place now, national ranking. Which of the national rankings, the top public ones, and that gives me a list. Sorry, let me just try and see this. So which of the national ranks top public school, and now that gives me a list of all the top public schools, and that has also arranged them according to their ranking. So basically, University of California, Berkeley. Whoa, it used to be University of California, Los Angeles. So now there is a lot of competition in the system. University of California, Berkeley is now the top public school in the US. That's a lot. I mean, a lot to take in. This is one school people can easily apply to if they want. And Los Angeles to the same. In fact, there are lots of California schools in US, University of California, with many locations, and they all are kind of good schools. You can find all of them in the first 50 ranking in the top public schools. So you go through this, get to know which school you would want to apply to. I would want to go down a little before maybe we click on one to go through it. So University of California, so far we've seen University of California like 5 times, University of California, Davis. So University of California has a lot of schools. So if it is California you want to go to, and get a lot of universities to apply to. Let me go to University of Texas, Austin. So maybe you like this particular university. You can read something small about the university. The University of Austin is one of the largest schools in the nation. It's divided into 13 schools and colleges, blah, blah, blah. If you want to read more, you click. reviews for the university, 20 reviews, and it is almost 5 star. So that tells you something about. So among the top public schools, they are number 10 in the national ranking. They are number 38. That means it's a very, very good school. Well, you can try to read about the tuition and the fees, but usually it's not our concern because our focus is as much as possible to get scholarship or funding from the schools. And let me just use this opportunity to talk about funding and scholarship. So usually people get to think that to apply to schools abroad, you have to kind of look for scholarship. Well, it's the case for some parts of the world, but specifically to US, the scholarship are considered to be applied automatically if you apply for admission in most of these schools. So if you become so competitive in the application process, you are bound to automatically get an admission coming together with a scholarship for you, which is usually not even called scholarship, but assistantship in the form of maybe a graduate assistantship, which could be a teaching assistantship, a research assistantship, or any form of administrative work you can do for them. But the assistantship is such that work for me or work for us as a graduate student, and let's waive your fee, tuition fee for you. And as you are working,
What are you making people?
we're paying you some allowance, which we usually call stipend as an academic word,
What time?
paying you some stipend for the work you are doing for us. But some of the incentives we are giving you is we will be waiving your tuition fee for you and some other fees for you, maybe insurance, maybe a student fee, maybe a matriculation fee. I mean, those petty fee aside the tuition fee, they could probably waive it for you because you are now considered a worker of the university and you are bound to achieve some particular benefit. So yeah, that is how most of the scholarship looks like in US. And as such, it means you don't have to worry yourself to be searching for some particular scholarship to be sure you can get into a school abroad before you start applying to the school. Just rather waste the time on searching that have the ability to give you some sort of funding when you are admitted. And sometimes they don't even give you the funding after admission. You get to get the funding after you have had admission and started maybe asking a couple of people from the university to try and give you some sort of assistantship to help you come to the school. So people get their admission, they just get some 10% scholarship tuition scholarship waived for them. They start their visa process in the same time. They start working on assistantship from the department. So they go from department to from there, that moment you may have a lot of things related to the university. You may even have your email address already. So that means it becomes easier to email people in the institution. Your program director or your program advisor could be giving you options of people you can apply for assistantship from the same university. And since you will be using your email address, it means that you'll be receiving your email directly. That's another unfortunate thing. When you are emailing someone without a university email address from the same university, it sometimes could go into their spam. So always termed external, and it's up to the professor to open an external email or not. So once you get an email from the university and you can now communicate with people in the university community, it becomes more easier for you to have access to them. And people get their scholarship in this process. People can get their assistantship like 2 weeks to their interview period, meaning that they had already started the whole visa process and they never had scholarship at that time, but some 2 weeks or a week to their visa process had a good news from all these scholarship shirts they were doing. And finally, they were able to go for their interview as students with scholarship or students with assistantship. So this assistantship thing isn't, it's really cool. It isn't usually the major focus for many people because not everyone will get scholarship or assistantship, and you don't get it because of just your academic credentials, especially in the instance when your admission didn't come with scholarship. You may get this assistantship based on how hardworking you are after the admission. Yeah, that is why it's also advisable a lot of universities so that you can weigh your chances. Okay, this gave me this amount of scholarship or this percentage of scholarship. This school gave me this. Looking at the living expenses in this school and looking at the one here, okay, I think it's better going here because I may not really suffer. And one thing is, Even if you have tuition waiver, you can have your scholarship in the form of tuition waiver, meaning that you are not paying tuition fee, but you don't have any assistantship yet to say that you may be working for the school to pay you some stipend. But immediately you get to the university, or even before you get to the university, you may even get a different form of assistantship or a different form of work on campus to do that could still give you some sort of funding. And it is so common in every university. Like currently where I am, there are a lot of work they don't even have people to do. Just within the university community, they hardly have people to do it. And there are platforms to help you get all access to all the work if you want to apply for them. So the process seems difficult when you are in Ghana or when you are yet to come. But once you get here, if it is the work, you obviously get the work to do. Well, sometimes the wage rate will be lesser than what you may get from assistantship, but you still get to be working for some money to pay your rent, your living expenses, and all that. So the process seemed difficult in the beginning, but actually once you get admission and you have some chance of getting your tuition waived, you are basically similar to someone with a full assistantship from the department and going to be a TA or a research assistant or whatever. Yeah, so this is the list. If you want to maybe go to University of Austin, you just click this, get to have a feel of a feel of how the university looks like. I mean, you can still read this, but I want to know some. I always like this. I want to know how the campus looks like because it's fun. I mean, this is more like the city, not necessarily the campus. Yeah, so Austin is regarded as an open-minded, friendly, and innovative city. So this is actually the city of Austin. So that means, yeah, on your weekends, if you want to maybe go to a grocery store, you are likely to find yourself in a place like this because you usually may go to downtown to maybe buy some stuff for yourself. This is campus. This is downtown. This is campus. And most of these public universities always have a blend of maybe the olden time apart buildings and also the new time buildings, and it makes the campus more like feeling. You get to see that, okay, I'm seeing some structures that really date back to the 19th and the 18th, and you can still see some very new buildings too. These buildings you are seeing are usually, I mean, I have this apartment, this structure in my university too. I don't know how popular it is in other university, but it's usually the center of the university. I mean, that particular structure, one of always the very old structures in the university. So this is some few things you can find in your university. That same building is what you see in the background there. Yeah, I think the images here ended, so they weren't that much like some other schools. But if you want to know more, to get more pictures too, you can go to University of Austin afresh. It was University of Texas, sorry, Austin. And Google would help you with a lot of pictures if you want. Just appearing here. So here also gives you the same summary we were talking about. 80% graduation rate, 32% acceptance rate. Yeah, I mean, they were number 10 on the public ranking. So it makes sense that the acceptance rate is low, but it still doesn't mean anything that much if you are a first class student and above, or second class upper and above. Yeah. So you could click on images to see more pictures from University of Austin. Yeah, so you just check them. I mean, I like it, so I always check it because I want to know how my campus is. Now, let's finally go into the university website, and that is how to get to the university website too, by the way. You don't necessarily have to do the exact web address. Just type the university's name like I did here and click on it. The first link that comes should be the university's website. They would even give you other options: admission, graduate school, area of studies, and that. I would always, let's first go to the first web page we see when we get to the university website. This is the first web page we see. Now, the nature of this website is similar to most university websites we may visit later. They always have this particular bar here that gives you a summary of what the website has. And we are always interested in where their program is. So we usually would come to the place called academics, and that means we should see always the word academics in most of the websites we may visit for other universities. When it comes to academics, we are graduate students. We want to apply to graduate programs. So just search anything related to graduate program, graduate school, whatever. Because, like I told you, universities usually focuses on undergraduate students. So when you said something like University of Texas Austin programs, it may take you straight to undergraduate program because basically 80% of what the school does is so because you want to look for graduate programs, you just make sure you go to academics. It gives you this drop down menu. Then you can now go through look for something graduate. So this is graduate school. Sometimes you see the word meant graduate programs. That becomes more easier. So this I guess it would take me to something else. So let's click on graduate school. Then this university really looks like my campus. Very rural, small city sort of. So we come to admissions. Well, this website is not even well organized like you find in most other universities. So we come to admissions, how to apply. We are actually looking for programs, remember. So I come to academics again. And after coming to academics, now I have, so this wouldn't normally happen. From academics, usually you should see the first academics we met. Usually you should see graduate programs there, but this one brings you a graduate school and still give you a similar options like the first one. But of course, we know we would always find the programs under something related to academics. So I come to academics again, have programs and contacts, and that is a good thing. The contact they've added there is a good thing, meaning that for every program, there would be someone to contact for any information you want. And that is really cool. It could even be an application fee waiver if you want to ask. And they will sometimes, give you any information they have with respect to that. Yeah. So this didn't have a filter for us to select the particular, and yeah, this gave us a lot of information. I like how they are arranged. So another thing you do is, you see, you wouldn't know for now the schools you may want to apply to. Sometimes you get to have a diary where you put major information about some particular programs you are interested in some particular schools. And it would also be appropriate to note the deadlines of those programs. So from what we are seeing here, it appears this school has their 4 deadlines to be 15th December. And these 15th December are called priority deadlines. I mean, they are deadlines for people who strictly want scholarship or assistantship from the university. So the first assistantship are given out to those who submitted their application by 15th December. And sometimes, even if you're an average student and you have school like this, it helps because by then they still have to give out admission and scholarship. So if you have applied by then and you seem competitive as at that time, then it means you are bound to get this. It's possible that later there will be people with 3.9 out of 4.0 applying, and you would still keep your admission, but they may not even get admission because it would have been difficult they getting into it because the next batch of people that applied at their time were so competitive that those with 3.8 maybe didn't get it. So it's also always good to try and submit your application during the first priority deadlines. So you can note some of these things when you find a program you're interested in. We are currently at School of Agriculture. Oh no, I shouldn't have put on that. Yeah, so it is giving you a couple of courses, the admission contact, those in charge of programs, the school, the graduate advisors, the graduate coordinators. So they even give you 3 different people you can contact. Graduate coordinator, school graduate, any of them you can contact and they'll give you any information you ask of. Yeah. So you can scroll down. We don't need maybe School of information. Maybe you come to School of Business, you can take your time, go through all the programs and the School of Business, and they tell you the type of degree for every program. So the first one is PhD. We have MPA in that order. So here about the deadline, it says the deadline is January 5th. It says international applicants, April 30, US. Okay, the January 5th is for applicants and 30th April is for US applicants. But still, you can even submit as early as possible so that you just close your hand off this particular application. Because sometimes you have to do a lot of application and time to time there may be a lot of free ones coming your way after you have done your. You see, sometimes you may have particular schools you want to apply to. After applying, you get to realize there are other opportunities coming with free application waiver, and you feel like, let me try them too. So by the end of it, or you could even apply to 10 universities. You only had 5 in mind. That's good. That's what happened to me actually. I only wanted to apply to 10, which I even thought was so much, but eventually I applied to about 19. That is even the ones I completed. So you will still have to be flexible in those decisions you make. So business administration, so many options. Business analytics also here. Yeah, some programs are sometimes also hardly sponsored or hardly giving scholarship, and usually they are those hot-cake programs like business analytics. But of course, you can get into them. MSBA, you try to get as much as possible some tuition waiver if you get. And once you get a tuition waiver for a program like MSBA, that is the best kind of scholarship you can get. And it would be advisable to make sure you are even coming for a program like that, because right after you get here, you can find your way to get some campus job to do, to maybe find your way around your living expenses. Right after your first year, the kind of internship you may get henceforth can make you so comfortable than even those who came immediately with teaching assistantship, because this is a very hot scale program that can be paying you 6,000 and above as even as an intern every month, and that's a lot of money. And sometimes most of these positions as an intern, you get to even still continue interning for them, even after you are done with that particular internship, or you get to have the chance to even be retained after your program. That is, if you do well, of course. And I mean, you will learn everything you have to in the school or in the program before you go there. So obviously, you'll be able to really deliver to their expectation. And programs like this actually pave way for you. So they are hardly sponsored. It's a hotcake program, so they are hardly sponsored. And some of these programs too are possible to be applied by, or I mean, if you are doing any quantitative program, you can apply today. So all business, economic students, math students, physics students, statistics students, actuaries. So any program you did that's kind of was quantitative in nature, you can still apply to some of these programs. That's how this program is, and that's how competitive it becomes. Computer science and all that. So finance options, you have all that here. And unfortunately, one or another unfortunate thing about business programs generally, they are hardly sponsored. If you are applying without some of the standardized tests like GMAT and stuff like that, but some of them too, we have a few of them you can apply without all these things, and you can hope to get into them with assistantship and all that. Remember, like I said, you don't necessarily need an assistantship department. You don't get. Sometimes the assistantship could come from economics department, and that would be you trying to reach out to the economics department after you've had admission, and you never know, you could get into that school. So this is communication. So they have grouped them into their college of education. I mean, curriculum and instruction. It's a program you can get into, and mostly programs like this actually is sponsored. They have some assistantship giving, educational leadership, educational psychology. So there are some education programs you can take here. I think there should even be education mathematics. Yeah, here, education mathematics too, and sociology for those who did hyper in UCC, for example, or those into some sort of psychology programs that is related to, I mean, the body, physics of the body, and trying to maybe heal maybe some kind of ailment from the body. So we come to School of Engineering. I mean, those of you interested, some of these STEM programs, they are always sponsored. Most of them are sponsored. So it becomes a done deal if you are really a competitive student. So they also have their deadlines. They remember, if you want to jot down a program, you put down the name of the program, maybe one of the contact list. That is, you will need an email of one of, you jot it under the program. You jot whether you want to apply for the PhD option or the master's option. And that's another thing. In the US, you don't necessarily need a master's, a PhD. I mean, once you are a good student and you feel you can do a PhD, you can directly go from bachelor's degree to Doctor of Philosophy degree. And that's so cool to do. So some of you who want to try that option too. And once you get into a PhD, automatically you have a scholarship. That's another good thing about PhD. I mean, there are some few universities that can be so weird, admit you for PhD and not give you funding. I had a couple like that. I was even surprised. Like, you want me to come to your university to come and contribute to knowledge in your university, and you're not ready to invest in me? It doesn't really make sense. I remember having a Zoom meeting with the last school I chose, which is where I am currently, and the professor was asking me about how many admissions I have so far. I mentioned them and I said, yeah, but I have scholarship from this one and this one, and I'm yet to get scholarship from this one. I said, how does it work? They gave you admission, but they didn't add scholarship yet. I said yes. I said, wow. So he said he was surprised as a professor of my program, as the graduate director for my program, because it doesn't make sense. Because as a PhD program, you are basically there. It's more like a give and take. You are giving to them and they are also giving to you. In fact, they're actually using you, sort of, because you are basically doing something, and maybe people they employ full time will be doing. And you're having to do that as a student. But of course, more like you as a student also need it. So you are ready to compromise. But to compromise to the extent that they are not even giving you a penny doesn't really make sense. Yeah, so you can always be assured of graduate assistantship when you get admission from PhD programs. If you want to do masters before PhD too, that's fine. That's another thing about US. Once you get there, you want to make sure you are extending your stay there. You know, some of these things, I mean, I don't know if this is why I can say this. I'm actually using my university Zoom, but I mean, of course, they know it actually. We kind of use this whole graduate studies thing as a maybe as a carrot to get into the country, because you who would by force want to do a graduate studies if they can get into this country and still get some work to do to kind of make ends meet. So this whole graduate studies thing sometimes is just to come into the country and start working to make money for our families and blah blah blah. So if you feel like doing masters before PhD can maybe extend your stay in the country and let you know a lot of things in the country that can finally help you know how to find your way out after school. You can go for 2 years masters, you go for another 5 years PhD. That's already 7 years in US as a student. By then, you would know so many things about US to help you extend your stay. That's fine. If you want to go directly into PhD, do hardly would you get into a PhD degree, for example, from this university we are going through, and not get a job offer right after your uh, program. I mean, you can't get that. It can't happen in some universities, especially very highly ranked universities. My program, my school like this has 100% um job job admission rate to their PhD maths program, for example. So before you even complete your program, you already have some job offers waiting for you. You even have to make options because they kind of use that to also strengthen the their rank and also strengthen how competitive they would want to be to the academic market. So they would make sure that their program always has 100% job admission rate. And that's something they would want to be proud of. So they always make sure that they are giving you all the opportunities that can get you such offers. And hardly do I see people with PhD not getting job offers after. So even if you go directly into PhD, you still have that option of immediately getting a job offer after. I mean, it depends on the program, but I mean, talking for my program, for example, I think it's easily possible. Hold on. All right, so that is it. So in engineering department, we have a lot. College of Fine Arts, we have a lot. College of Information, College of Geosciences. So with schools like this, no matter the program you did in your undergraduate, you should find a program for yourself. You would find a program for yourself. Natural sciences, we come to the math side. You should see some of the math programs, like computer science, 50 year integrated, data science option. That's another program that is hardly sponsored, but of course you can still get into it and be okay later after your first year. Marine science, mathematics here already. You can just go there. You you said something about it. Let me go to maybe mathematics to read something small. So we come to mathematics, they'll give you, I mean, overview of the department, blah, 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 the specializations the department has. So analysis, if you want to specialize in analysis, applied and computational mathematics. This is what I'm actually doing here. We can also go into the financial part, probability and financial mathematics. So my program doesn't have, my program is called this, but I am specializing in financial mathematics. I mean, math is very, very flexible. So topology is another area you can get into, geometry, algebra and number theory, groups and dynamics. So you just get to know what the school is about, and they will tell you all the information you need. If you want to send a message to a graduate advisor, you have them there. Assistant graduate advisor, you have them there. They will always ready to respond to any question you have. Here you see TA assignment and grader policy. So seeing this here means that it's a very common thing there. You see here teaching assistantship. So aside teaching assistantship, we are even seeing student employment. So it means you don't necessarily have to get teaching assistantship before you can feel like you have some sort of scholarship. You can go to student employment, look for your own, maybe assistantship. Sometimes you may even be more better off getting those offer from the student employment than the teaching assistantship. So they give assistantship to their almost all our PhD students are employed as teaching assistantship during some fall and spring semesters. Some students are also employed as TAs for one or more summers. So during the summer period, too, you could be teaching assistant. So the section on financial support contains information about the TA employment, how the TA employment is determined. This section describes the role of the TA. So you can take your time once this information is of relevance to you. I mean, this information we are having here should be the same in the other programs too. Though it's not going to be, like it should be similar, because some of this information will be put here by the math department. So another information would also be put there by another department. So you may not see it ditto as you see here, but most of this information will be similar in other departments too. So they tell you all what you have to know about getting into the assistantship or getting, so international TAs, I saw something about international. So to be appointed as a TA, you must be fluent in English, which we already have. That's another thing I should talk about. So mostly when you are going through the requirement of the program, you get to see as one of the options that you should write a standardized English test, blah, 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 and sometimes for international students, but mostly for schools in the US, they waive it for English-speaking African countries, including Ghana. There are in few instances where Ghana will be excluded. There are some few instances where every international student would have to submit an English proficiency test. So it's all up to you. I mean, you have the options. Like I said, we have so many schools to apply to. You get a school that is forcefully telling you to submit an English test. You just ignore the school if you think you can't write that English test. It's as easy as that. If you still like the school after reading so many things about the school and you think you would want to get into the school, of course, you can go ahead and write the English test. It's not that difficult, but you still need some preparation to make sure you ace the score so that it can increase your chances. So you will have to meet this and demonstrate. It is demonstrated by international students by passing an oral English assessment, blah, blah, blah. I mean, all these things usually doesn't work for every school in Ghana. I mean, you can probably follow somewhere. Sometimes they will tell you some schools, some countries that are with this thing, and so far they are not saying it. And I'm sure this school would waive. Most of these public schools, I mean, you always receive international students. You get to over time waive it for some particular countries based on. So I saw something here. There are exceptions for those with high TOEFL and IELTS scores, and for those from English-speaking countries. So by reading this, automatically it tells you that, okay, Ghana, coming from Ghana, I don't have to write any test, right? So there are exemptions for those from English-speaking countries. So by reading this, it tells you, okay, I don't need this test. You go ahead with other options like that. So we can come to student employment, and assistantship is, of course, student employment, graduate research assistantship, and giving you all the benefits you may need, you would have as a student employee, and new student employee checklist, international checklist. You can go there, get to read more about the school and that sort of. Yeah, so we can just think of another school. For example, we want to do a general search at the beginning for that particular school. Who can I have in mind? Maybe Ohio University. Ohio, Ohio. It's so you can read something small about it. It is a space grant public research university in Athens, Ohio, and the first university chartered by an act of Congress, and the first to be chartered in Ohio. It was chartered in 1787. So acceptance rate 87, meaning, I mean, you have a high chance of getting into, if you are a second class and above student, graduation rate 63%. Now, what is this graduation rate about? You see, in US, you can easily transfer from one school to another. I mean, as an undergraduate, it's hardly happening for graduate students. Like I told you, most of these things are for graduate students, the undergraduate. So as an undergraduate student, you can start your first year in Ohio University and leave to another university because you are not feeling the school. I mean, they are so particular about how they feel the school. They want to make sure that, okay, I'm proud of this school I'm attending. If you think you are not proud of it, even though proud to they come into the school, they sometimes come to the school to come and, I mean, have a whole lot of thoughts about the school. They get people to take them through all what they want to know. As I'm speaking currently, it is ongoing every day. People are coming with their parents, trying to know a lot of information about the school. But it's still possible, after all these things, they'll get into the school and they'll feel like leaving. So the 63% here is talking of the out of 100 students, 63 of them still stay to complete their studies there. But the rest, 37%, try to go to another university. I mean, it happens. Even Harvard, people go there and still leave. So we don't expect to see 100% for Harvard here or MIT here, but they will really be high. Let's try that and see. You can check MIT. Yeah, so 94% out of 100, 94% still stay to complete their school. I mean, of course, why wouldn't you stay? If you're leaving, where are you going to? Maybe Harvard, maybe Stanford University and stuff like that. So acceptance rate 7%. And still, like I told you, that doesn't really, it's not like a clear indication of what is happening even in the graduate school, right? So this 7% doesn't mean out of 100 graduate students that apply, only 7 of them are chosen for the graduate. This is an indicator for all the students they admit, and majority, about 90% of them is undergraduate students. Let's even come down here to check the number of undergraduate students. But they are not many at all. 4,360 undergraduate students was enrolled in 2018. So you mean this thing also affected the trick here because they're not that much. I mean, this will be like, yeah, 8 times of this may be the number of undergraduate students in my school. So, I mean, it wouldn't really matter. So yeah, that is it anyway. 7% here, graduation rate 94%. Let's go back to our university. So this is Ohio University. I just typed Ohio University. It sent me to the website. So let me click the first web page of the website. This is Ohio. So 2022 incoming class break records inside GPA, and yeah. So they are telling you something about those who recently got to the school. So more like a lot of people were admitted than usual. They had high GPA or something, and they were from so many different backgrounds. I mean, everyone tried to brag about their university. Like, that's one nice thing about university, national universities actually. So the thing we talk about, the first webpage, I mean, you can see here about Ohio academics admission. So always we go through academics and admission. You want the program, you go to academics, right? So, oh no, you don't want to click. I just wanted to hover around it. So we come to academics and we have the schools research thing. I mean, what are we interested in? The programs. So academic programs. We have the undergraduate one, the graduate one, the medical one. So where you want, you go. We want the graduate one. We click on the graduate programs. It brings us to the graduate programs. So here is just an indication of the name of the degree and their full name and their code and all that. So you can't click on anything here to go to a particular program. But when you come to the right-hand side here, it says graduate program by academic unit and list of graduate programs. So here can give you some hyperlink for you to click on the program if you want to get into the program. I also applied to this school and also got into it. Fortunately, I didn't choose it. So Ohio 2 is a school you can easily get into. I submitted my GRE to this school. It wasn't even any kind of good school, but they accepted it, meaning it's not that competitive if you are a first class student or a second class student. Yeah, so these are their programs, PhD. So this is a list of all their PhD programs. So based on the program you want to offer, you can quickly search. It is in alphabetical order. So maybe math, I can quickly go to math. Maybe finance, I can quickly go to F colon. So I'm not seeing F here, meaning they don't have a PhD in finance, but probably they may have a PhD in a master's in finance, stuff like that. Maybe accounting, no PhD in accounting, but they have curriculum and instruction. Those of your education students, always, this is one of the programs you should consider. You can do curriculum and instructions and major in mathematics, but sometimes we have math education, PhD in math education. That's another one you can choose. So yeah, these are their PhD program. You come to their master's program. Accountancy is there. Applied linguistics. I mean, a whole lot of them. Business administration, online, MBA, blah, blah, blah. Professional, business administration and sport administration, dual degree, business analytics. Okay, and one good thing about Ohio is they usually give the scholarship called Graduate Recruitment Scholarship. In case you don't get graduate assistantship, you may get something called Graduate Recruitment Scholarship, and that is somehow cool. It reduces your cost. The assumed cost the university will give as your cost of the program to around 14,000, and that 14,000, about half of them are just cost on paper. They are not a direct indication of the cost you may incur. And when you get to Ohio, in fact, Ohio is one of the most popular university name in Ghana, right? And as such, it is one of the schools with many Ghanaians. In fact, currently their master's or their mathematics program has about, I think the lady said they are about 14 for their math program, and 9 of them are Africans. So you can imagine 9 of them are Africans. So the other 5, they are not even, most of them are not even Americans. I think about 3 are other countries who are not necessarily Black and 2 Americans. So you can tell how people from Africa or Ghana, I mean, out of the 9, I think 5 are Ghanaian and 4 are Nigerians also. So you can tell how these 2 countries usually go to Ohio. And yeah, they fortunately it looks like Ghana has a good name there, so they easily admit people from Ghana. So you can try Ohio University if you want, and I'm sure you will get into it. But I said, make sure you all aren't applying to the same university. It is really a very bad move. Else you will see 1 or 2 people getting admitted, especially if you are all from the same background, you're applying to the same program or you're applying into the same department. You may end up realizing that this, because it's the same, if they are doing the whole application thing, they would want to consider the best among the application they've received. So even if they had the best here and they are still seeing the best there, they will still choose the person. Although at the end of it all, the same person can deny some of them and it will be available to other people. But what if it is not available to you as the next person, but another person from a different country? Remember, the competition is not between just you as Ghanaians, but between everyone who applies. Yeah, so you can apply to this as one of your safe schools if you want. That's fine. I mean, most of you come from different background. It doesn't matter. Once you are from different background, fine, apply. And if you think you have a very high credential, just go straight to the PhD so that you can leave the master's one to maybe people who are not who have maybe just are hanging around low first class and strong upper or low upper and stuff like that. So higher education I mean, these are all their master's programs, so you can have a whole list to choose from. Always don't mind the graduate certificate. It comes with no scholarship. So what's the point of applying to them? They are usually 6 months programs and all that. So this time I want to select a master's program called what? Um, so I think they have this program called Financial Economics Masters. Should I find it here? Economics, I'm not seeing it. So let me select another program. Maybe computer science. How am I taking long in this semester? So let me go to mathematics education. I've never visited that program before. Okay, let me go to something called social sciences. Don't even know what it is. So we come to social, master of social sciences. You can read what the program is about here. I mean, it's ideal for teachers who want to study content in the social sciences and it's beneficial to the public, administrators, blah, blah. So they're telling you it's ideal for teachers. So if you want to apply, fine. All non-native English speakers must demonstrate English proficiency, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so if they don't talk about anything about international students from English-speaking country, you can go ahead and ask them. This program does not permit full-time enrollment in residence at Ohio, and an I-20 cannot be issued based on an admission to this program. So you just leave it. So this program, it's more like not for international students, right? So we quickly even leave. We don't even waste time there. So we have MA in photography. In fact, you can learn anything here. So in this program, even if you're a math student, you have interest in photography, you have started your own kind of photography job, maybe you want to get into professional photography, you apply to this, they will still take you. That's one cool thing about some of these master's program. So sustainability, security, and resilience. Let me go here. Masters of Sustainability. I want something general that almost everyone can apply to. I think this is one of them, maybe. So program overview, description and content of resilience, blah, blah, blah. Admission requirements will be based on the applicant experience, personal statement, and letter of recommendation. The personal statement should be, tell you all what you have to do. And that's another thing. Always make sure you read admission requirements to know some particular, like the one we just read. We realize that international students, an I-20 is not even issued. International I-20 cannot be issued based on an admission to this program. So you can imagine. That is, these are programs that are such that you have to be working. You can apply, all right. So for example, I'm an international student in the US already. I can apply to this program because I am already here, and the program will be such that they would want me to already have some existing job doing where the job is related to this program. So I'm basically learning and doing internship with the job to kind of apply what I'm learning here on the job. So we have a couple of programs like that. So this, of course, assuming you are from Ghana, you need an I-20. So what is an I-20? An I-20 is called Document of Eligibility to help you apply for a visa in your home country to enter US. So if you don't have an I-20 from a school after the whole admission thing, it is basically the same as saying you can't come to US. So if you can come to US, what's the point of even trying to apply to the university to begin with, right? Yeah, so you can also try reading about I-20. It is not necessary now, but if you're curious, you can type I-20 form I-20 on Google. It will give you a lot of information about it. So yeah, when you see something like this, I mean, just make sure that it means that you can't apply. You don't have to apply to the school because you basically need to be in the US to be able to apply, since it is more practical. These things are not really helping. So let me go to math. Usually math is so confident in some of these things. So let me go to math, MS math. We have about 3 UCC students in this program currently for the current year. I mean, every year there are lots of physics, but this year already has 3 in just this program. So basically, you have your friends in the same program going for lectures together. It's cool. I mean, I feel like Ohio is cool. Unlike mine, I'm just the only black person in my program, we are about 31 math students. I'm the only Black person, easily recognizable. The whole department, we are only 3 Black students. I mean, that's like 30 times 5. So more like 150 students, only 3 Black students. So you can imagine it's kind of weird. Always you are the only Black in the class. Everyone can identify you. Like, so weird. But I mean, was about a lot of factors and not necessarily about the race you're from. I needed money, so I made sure the school I'm choosing giving me a lot of money. I don't know if I made a wrong choice like that. I like the school so far. So admission requirement for the maths program, a GPA of 3.0 at least. Almost all of us qualified. Hooray. So core undergraduate mathematics, coursework, blah, blah, blah. Native English speakers must demonstrate English proficiency. I applied to Ohio University, for example. I didn't submit any English proficiency test, but see how they are writing it there. So it's me. Non-native is all of us, even Ghanaians, right? We are non-native, but we are an English-speaking country, or English is our first language. Stuff like this means you will be waived. This program permits full-time enrollment in residency, and an I-20 may be issued based on admission. So you get it. An I-20 may be issued based on. I like how they do their website. They make sure you don't try apply and finally realize that you wasted your time applying. It's a cool thing. So graduate requirements, some requirements also from the graduate school, some courses you may be taking. The following courses do not count. Okay, they do not count. All right. I saw one of these courses. So doctoral, also some of the courses you'd have to do. Algebra, topology, statistics, analysis. That's cool. And if you want to go into applied math too, I mean, some of these applied stuffs, it's where I always come. I mean, they are so cool to do and not really complicated, like those topology stuffs. Topology is not in this part of our country, Ghana. So really you get to go for graduate studies and you haven't even done anything topology before. Meanwhile, it's also common in US math schools. So yeah, that is it about the university. So this was basically to tell you that any university website you go to. So for example, Florida. Florida is another state in US anyway. So Florida, what am I spelling? So Florida State University, for example. I go there, I get the normal information I want. I finally go to the university website. So I always try and make sure I check the acceptance rate. Just, I mean, as a normal metric I put in my head, I don't really care much about it. But I mean, if it is below 20, I personally may not apply. I'll feel like I'm wasting my application. But who knows? Maybe I'll take that bet and that would be one of the schools that will admit me. And that means that I'm finally getting into a very competitive university, and you kind of feel good about it. We're finally in a very competitive university. Wow. I mean, I know a friend from UC, UC Berkeley now, which was currently the top ranked university. We checked. Berkeley was top ranked university, public university in US, but I mean, it wasn't that scary. The guy got into it. The guy was a normal first class student, not kind of an extraordinary first class student. So, and yeah, that I went into it with Mastercard Foundation. So that's another thing you can maybe search on. Mastercard Foundation have a few scholarship for people who who would want to have their graduate studies in the US. I mean, for some particular universities in the US. So this is Florida State University. I quickly click the first link. It takes me to the website. Now, the website looks a little different, all right, but they don't do away with where you see the cursor. They would always show it has something. Sometimes it will be hidden. It will be hidden in something like this. You see this sign here. Sometimes that is where it is hidden. So more like the menu sign, you click on that and it will now give you all these options there. Yeah. So sometimes it's different. Sometimes too, the first thing they show you is the programs. For my school, for example, it may not necessarily apply open this way. So, University of Iowa, and no, so it's more easy to get into my school, 84%. But the application fee is so expensive. Anyway, so this is how my school's website looks like. And you see, they didn't show all those academic admissions and blah, 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 but they emphasized on three major stuffs. So virtual tour, if you want to know more about the campus, areas of study, cost, and aid. So they emphasize more on these three before any other thing. And usually that is what we try to look for. So area of study immediately takes you to the program, right? It takes you to the program. So undergraduate academic areas, we don't care about undergraduates. We keep scrolling until we get to graduate students. Wow, okay. At the right-hand side, view grad programs. Then finally, we are there. So accounting, acting, actuarial science. So this is the program I am doing. Applied math and computational science, art education, Asian. I mean, most of the major universities will have any kind of program you want, you think about, like every program. Then the ones you can't even think of as a program, you see them offering it. So there will be a lot of options for you. Of course, there is also mathematics. So those of you who want mathematics, you don't want applied mathematics, there is also mathematics showing there. There is linguistics, communication. I have a friend doing French here. I have someone to do in finance, PhD in finance. We have PhD in business analytics. The program I wish I knew before I applied. I'm even still trying to see if I can get into that. I mean, if I can get into PhD business analytics, sorry, that's a big deal. Where is that program? So business analytics. And usually that program, like I said, is one of the programs almost everyone can apply to once you did something quantitative. Business is BU, right? This is it. So business analytics, PhD, they have the MS1. They hardly sponsor the MS1. So, I mean, it's not the hardest, so they don't. They don't sponsor this one, but I'm sure of it. They don't sponsor the MS1, but they sponsor the PhD one. It's very competitive. I mean, 2 students can be given this PhD to do. The same applies to the finance one. I mean, some programs, when you do them, it is a done deal for your road to success because you just be a hot cake after graduation. We have French and Francophone world studies. You can do this. I have a friend doing this. I have a friend doing geography, MA. I mean, the programs, you can easily get into them with scholarship because there are a lot of Ghanaians here that are, I mean, we are scattered all right, but I mean, like 7 is not that bad. Currently, this year we were 7, which is not bad. And seeing that all of them have full funding is a big deal. I mean, it means that they really give. But this guy, there's a guy I have here doing natural science who didn't come with funding. All right. I mean, he came with 0 funding, but he's currently here. He was able to get his visa and he's now living so comfortable. He has a job already he's doing. He took a loan from Empower, which is a very common thing. It looks weird to us, but that is the nature of US. I mean, about 80% of undergraduate students in US actually are attending their undergraduate programs with loans. It's more like a common thing. Here, you even want the loan more than because they are more into the credit score system. So by credit score, you get to establish yourself such that you tell people out there that you are good at paying credit. So there are structures in place such that you can get credit from people. You can get a credit card from Amazon. You can get a credit card from Apple to be buying Apple products. So basically, you are borrowing money from Apple to buy their product. Then you take your time and pay that money. If you're able to do the payment in time, if you are responsible, in code, that is how they use it. So if you are a responsible person in paying your credit, it gives you a high credit score, and that means you can buy anything on credit elsewhere, because once they ask off your credit score, they realize that, okay, you usually pay your credit. It means that we can even give this house to you. You don't necessarily have to pay this house in full. Just be paying them, I mean, bit by bit, 2,000 every month. So you are done with the payment in 30 years, for example. So it makes the system easy so that you don't necessarily have to be a very rich guy with millions and billions in your account before you can own things, before you can buy a car and all those things. So having loan is a common thing because You don't have to wait to have a lot of money in your account before you can afford things. Yeah, so this guy came with a loan, but now working on campus and earning some money aside the loan, and this loan he's even started paying the loan already. I mean, it's not yet 1 month since he came. He started paying the loan. He started working already, a whole lot of things. So it sounds like it's difficult. I mean, getting into a program in the US, but I mean, once you get the right information, you realize that most of the things that sounded weird to you are very easy, especially people who have the idea that they can't apply to schools themselves. They can't do this whole process themselves because it's difficult, it's complicated. I mean, I don't have any friend who ever went through an agent. All the people I know in the US did everything on their own. And it's even more easier when you do everything on your own because you get to know your next move one after the other. And it's fun if you know, because if you go through an agent, there is a lot of frustration. People pay as much as $2,000 and above just to let someone apply for a school for you. I wish, I think I can even do this kind of job and even stop schooling and still make a lot of money because people really make those payments. 2,000 for someone to find you, to find you. I mean, sometimes finally those people haven't to the whole process themselves because they haven't even been to US before. All they know is how to apply for the schools and how to give you all the visa information for you to go for your visa. But personally, they've never even stood before a visa officer before. So you can imagine how experienced that person may be. But we'll go to them and charge a lot of money, which I think is insane. I mean, as an undergraduate or as a graduate student who have completed your undergraduate, you should be that skillful to be able to do some of these things. It's basically applying to school is like creating an account on a website where they're asking of details. What is your name? What is your date of birth? Where do you stay? What is your address? What program do you want to apply? Like information like this, it's like a form. Some of them, they are even options you have to select after you click on a drop down and stuff like that. So I don't know how this becomes so difficult. If you have submitted your application, you will know that you've submitted it. Like everything is so clear in front of you, but still people find it difficult to do it on their own, which I find to be weird. And that is why I do stuff like this, because if you would always come to me individually to maybe apply for me, search for school for me, do this for me. And it's basically me not being able to help because I kind of am also going through some stress, trying to also adapt to a new country. I mean, assignments, working and studying at the same time, something you are doing for the first time, stuff like that. So you would have the urge to help, but at the same time, you feel like you are unable to do it because of how the kind of demand people want from you and the kind of stress you're also going through trying to balance the two. And eventually it appears you have ideas, but you can't help people with their ideas. And that's me, it would be so painful that people could have easily come, people I know could have easily come here with the process I used. And I couldn't give out the information to them because I was busy. And that's kind of insane. Because this process doesn't need anything special about anybody. It is mostly try and error. Like, this school I got into, for example, or the schools I got into, for example, it is possible I can apply to those same schools this coming year, and I may not be accepted in some of them. And the ones that rejected me, I may be accepted in those ones. Not because the admission committee isn't consistent or they don't know. It's about the pool of applicants they get every year, right? Maybe this time the applicants weren't so competitive, so I had my way through. Or maybe this time they were so competitive, so I couldn't get admitted into those ones. And maybe in the next one, there weren't that much of a competition, so I was able to get into it. A lot of things may happen. So sometimes it's not necessarily about how competitive your credentials are. You just try it and you become so, I shouldn't even use the word so, like you become kind of favor. I shouldn't use the word favor. As in, it gets to be your time. You get to apply for the school at the right time, such that yeah, you eventually got into the school because that was the time everything was in your favor, and that's why you usually supposed to apply to many schools. You never know the school that will eventually. I mean, I had schools that I chose as safe schools that rejected me, and schools I never even thought about. I applied to this school in February. is it January or February. This school like finally, I started my application from September. So meaning that all the schools I wanted to apply, I had already applied them already, and I knew that these are the schools, and I did everything. But in January, I just wanted to try this school. I tried it, and surprisingly, that was the school of about 5 admission with scholarship I had. I mean, those with scholarship I had to choose from. I eventually chose the one that I almost didn't. So you can imagine why it's good to always kind of be flexible in your choices and make sure you are not giving any opportunity. So yeah, MFA, book art, business, MBA, and a whole lot. So this is basically how to search for this. I mean, of course, if you click on the program, it should take you to the rest of the admission requirement stuff. So you come to the program estimated cost, and if you want to get other information about Iowa MBA program, apply online. So I think usually the link here is what I use. So TP College of Business catalog. Apply to the MBA. Trying to get the admission requirement from this program, combined degree programs. So let me click this. What is it bringing to me? Combined degrees, course of funding, admissions. Where do I get the program requirements? Let me click on the first one. So it has a lot of options for admissions. Something you can sometimes be doing if you want to start getting updates about the program. Yeah, most importantly, you come to request information. This thing they've written here as request information is on almost every website. So when you go to request information, now this is about the MBA program you just clicked. When it comes to request information, it will take details about you and you submit. Normally, you should even ask the program, okay, we are already in the MBA, so we are doing all this for the MBA. But sometimes when you open the website afresh and you see request information, it will take you through the program you need the information about and get some few information about you, and you submit. From there, you would be in the university's email list that any kind of email that may be of importance to you, you will be sent that email. Sometimes it's about a webinar, and sometimes those webinar could result to you getting an application waiver if you attend those webinars and all that. The webinar will be basically to tell you more about the program or about the school. And if you are interested, you go ahead and apply. But in the process, they may even tell you that joining that webinar qualifies you for an application waiver. Even if they don't say it, afterwards, you can send them an email. That is your program and email, blah, blah, blah. Your name is blah, 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 blah. You recently attended a webinar that was organized for this program, and you have so much had interest in this program, but you would want to know if there is a way of getting an application waiver to apply for this school. If they have, they will tell you, well, that's one good thing about Americans. They are so sincere. If they don't have, they will tell you point blank they don't have. If they have, they will tell you. If they don't have, then there is a way you can get it. They will give you that information. I mean, it's not now they will have to come and play around your emotions. Sometimes they do. They can play around your emotions. People try to say they are canny. That is, if you have a chance, and that chance is even that slim, they will let you know you have that slim chance. But that slim chance really mean that you get into it. See, so sometimes we will be happy about a certain slim chance we have been informed about. But in the next 3 days, you can receive a rejection about that same thing they told you about. Well, the same slim chance they are telling you, they also told others. Maybe they chose others for you. So sometimes they can be canny and you may overreact to some of their comments because you think that comment meant a done deal for you. Well, it wasn't the case, actually. Yeah. So this is basically the whole idea of searching for the school. Let me go back to the US news, especially. That place is where you can get. So people can get their schools from this website instead. So you type US news, university ranking. Remember what we typed. So right after that, it brings you to this first page we had. And from this page, all we have been doing is searching for the schools. Let's say you don't even you know the exact school you are looking for. You don't necessarily have to use the drop down to be scrolling down like this. You can still type the name of the school here. So let's say Ohio State University. That's another school. Remember, I said every school has a state university. Ohio State University. So that brings it. Then you click on it. So it brings you straight to Ohio State. You can read some of the information you have. Ohio State University is number 16 in the top public university. They are number 49 in the public university. This is highly ranked than Ohio University itself. And that's cool. So you can also watch a few pictures about this. But by knowing this few information, or probably clicking more to read more about the school, you can finally go to Google. I mean, sometimes you can find a website here if you want to. That is, if you don't want to go through the process to find the website, you can also find the website here. The school website. Click on it, it should send you to the school's website. So this is Ohio State University website. And you see how they indicated academic and admission and the research thing. So come to academics, we have college and library and calendar. Does it look like where we can find our programs? Maybe, maybe not. When we go down, we don't find anything about, okay, so we see something like find your major, right? So find your major. Usually it may be about undergraduate students, but you can just click on it, what will happen. So you see majors and obviously undergrad ones. Oh, okay. So this one will list all the majors, whether they have for masters or all undergrad. Okay, they're all undergrad. They're all undergrad. So let me see if you can select masters from here. Probably not. So filter by degree. Okay. Yeah, so everything is for bachelors. Everything you see. So we see one thing. So we saw something about major, but it was for bachelor's degrees. So it means it has nothing to do with the master's program. Hence, maybe going back to the academics is okay. We go to college and school. There should be a college for graduate students, for example, college of graduate students, for example. Let me go to G. So we have graduate school here, right? So by clicking here, I know that now every information I get. Why this? What can you tell me? So we have graduate school here. We have graduate school here. Now, all information we get here should be related to graduate programs, right? So programs and admission. Now, I should have all my programs here. Programs and degree, we go there. So finally, we have all the programs we need. So if your program starts with F, you can go to F, you search for it. And this one also has email address to some of the programs. So if you have any question to ask about the program, the email address you see attached to them, if you want to call to, you can call. Yeah, that's another. And it's not so expensive when you're calling US from Ghana. I mean, 5 cedi can give you, yeah, 5 cedi can give you about 20 minutes. Speak to someone. I mean, that gives you direct information. But if you want information, you can track later. You can use email, they reply, and you still have those response to come back to any time. Sometimes they may not reply as quickly as possible, and sometimes if you're not fortunate, they may not even reply at all, but it's still fine. You do it to schools. Some schools have 3 different emails. You do it to all of them. If you send an email to a certain person and he's not the right person to answer, he may reply that email and even copy the person that has to give you the response. I mean, it's so they make sure they can help as much as they can if they actually can. And it's so cool, right? So agricultural economics is another program those in the economics field can easily get into. I mean, so these are the programs for Ohio State University. Can select any of them that's going through the biostatistics, business administration. So you have PhD for business administration. That's cool. So biostatistics, I on it, brings me to the webpage of biostatistics, all information I want. We go to funding because we are more. They tell us how they give their funding. Graduate and professional students at Ohio State have a variety of funding options. That's cool, including assistantships and other employment, fellowships, loans. Yeah, so let me use this opportunity to explain fellowship. Fellowship is some very cool kind of stuff. One of the common one in US is the Fulbright. Want to do external funding applications, you can try Fulbright. But I mean, it's even passed for fall 2023, so no need. But you can read about Fulbright scholarship if you want. So they are usually some kind of given to you to based on an association you find yourself, some particular interest you have. Then they give you this scholarship, which will take care of your everything. You wouldn't have to work for them and all that, unlike the assistantship, where you would have to be working for the monies they give you and the waiver and all that. Yeah, we have something called other employment. You see what we have, the other employment. So it is not necessarily assistantship from your department, but it's some sort of employment that can also waive your tuition. And that's another thing. Usually when you're working for the university in any other way, you end up getting your tuition waived. It is not in most schools. Once you are working for the university one way or another, you qualify for a tuition waiver. So you may not have an assistantship from your department, but you may have it in another department or section, and it will still qualify you for assistance tuition waiver just because you are working for them. So here we have the application deadline. Apply if applying for application deadline if applying for funding. So they are basically talking to us. Applications received by December Applications received by December for international students and December 15th for domestic students will receive full consideration. So we'll receive full consideration for funding. If you don't read it well, you would think once you submit your application and you submitted it by that deadline, it means full consideration means that your application will automatically be considered for the scholarship opportunities they have. So once you have a very high, it means that on the scholarship table, you are also very, very closer to the top. Hence, you could be one of those students who will be given the scholarship. Yeah. So this is all about this whole school thing. I think I may end here and try to receive some questions if there are, or if not, that would be the end of the meeting. So any question though,